Hey, welcome to the Gig Life Podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Taylor. Hope you're doing well. My guest today is Serg Dimitrijevic. Have you heard this fella play guitar? Oh, man. Ariana Grande, Justin Timberlake, Kelly Clarkson, Hart, Aretha Franklin. They're just a few of the artists that have he's either played with or played on their music. He's also the guitarist in Earth, Wind & Fire. Yeah. That Earth, Wind & Fire. Do you remember? Anyway, sorry about that. He also has a band called Intergalactix with his mate Christian Attard. They are a indie electro instrumental funk project. One of the coolest things around. Heaps of other stuff going on with Serg too, so let's check it out, eh? This is episode 144, Serg Dimitrijevic. Here we go. All right, I think we're rolling. Hey, you, Serg. What's going on, man? What's good?
How are you, brother? I'm good, mate. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. So I'm in Sydney and you're currently in LA?
Yes, I am, mate. I'm back in LA since the last time I saw you, which was probably just a couple of weeks ago, right?
Was a couple of weeks, yeah. We went and watched Modern Artifact, which is Daniel March's band, play at Lazy Bones. And yeah, that's the first time we've met, actually. And, I've obviously known a lot about you, but hadn't actually met you, and didn't realise you were in town until that troublemaker Joe Acaria walks in with with you. So, but that was a good night. There, yeah, we got to hang out the back. Troublemakers up the back of the room, eh? Yeah, it was a top night.
No, it was really good to meet you too, man. I've obviously heard your podcast, and like I said, a lot of the fellas were talking about you, and especially the troublemaker Joe Acaria, as you said. So. It was good to finally put a face to a name as well, you know.
Oh, good stuff, good stuff. So where in LA are you based?
I'm on the east side these days, man. I'm in a place called Cypress Park, but it's a lot of people. It's a very small area, but it's right next to Mount Washington, which a lot of people probably recognise that area, or Silver Lake, Echo Park. It's that sort of east side thing, yeah, which is really nice. A little bit more chill than. When I first got to the States and living on like the Hollywoods and all that sort of stuff, so it's really, really nice and just chill.
Okay, so when you first got to LA, was that the plan to sort of hit Hollywood and that sort of area? Did you have that sort of targeted?
No, man. When I came to America, it was my first time, and I planned on coming just for a holiday for like 3 weeks. Then I ended up staying. I'm here 17 years later. So no, I had no plans, man. I had just plans to come and hang, and then stuff happened, and I ended up moving here. So yeah, and then I just happened to sort of be a few of the fellas that were here that I knew that I started something with. One of them was living in Hollywood, so that's where I sort of started off right like there, So
we'll get into the whole how things sort of happened over there in LA, but what I'd like to get in first is, that I before we hit record, I asked you how to pronounce your last name. So I'm going to give it another crack. So it's Dimitrijevic.
Yes, very good. Yeah. Okay. Dimitrijevic, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Dimitrijevic. Okay.
Don't worry, man. I have trouble spelling it too, mate. It's fine.
Yeah, I can spell. You know what? I can spell it fine. I can spell it fine. No, look, I apologise, but
no worries.
Yeah, right. Can I ask you about the origin of the name, and we'll talk a little bit about your family, and and then sort of roll into how music came about. And
yeah, well, I was born in Serbia, in a place called Pančevo. It's like near Belgrade, which is the main city there. It was Yugoslavia when I was born there, and now it's just Serbia. So, I was born there. My parents migrated to Australia when I was 1. And, young kids having a kid, they were like 22, 23, whatever, and they just go on, Dad had an uncle here doing some stuff. And at the time, Australia was wanting people from overseas to come and migrate and, establish the place and populate it. So my parents did that, they didn't speak any English. And they came with a 1-year-old, and so that's how I got here. And then, going to school and all that sort of stuff. But the good thing was my parents were always, they were young, so they were just listening to a lot of music, always into music. No one plays in my family. Like, there's no musicians that I grew up with, like dad or brothers, dad's brothers, uncles, all that sort of stuff. So they were just big fans of music. So there was always music around, people around, hanging out, parties. So I just grew up with just loving that vibe, having all sorts of music, playing from Black Sabbath to Donna Summer and whatever it was at the time. And, Kiss was my actual favorite group when I first really got into music. So I think that started from, my parents just playing so much stuff and eclectic stuff and getting all of that. So that led me into being a massive fan of Kiss, painting my face and collecting all the stuff and, painting my friends' faces and, all that sort of stuff. I was a massive fan, tennis racket in front of the mirror and all those fun things. But and then I got a guitar actually around that age, but I was just very young and I was very shy, and it's a really hard instrument. So I just, I tried, but I just couldn't. I don't know. I just didn't feel like I could work it out. And then my parents got me like a little keyboard, and that was cool because you could hit the notes. But I just didn't have that connection or something. I was listening to Kiss, but they didn't have any keyboards in the band, so I was just trying to work that out. So. But the love for music or listening to music was there earlier on from the folks, and then that sort of transpired into really loving it. Like Prince was one of my favorites, and still is my absolute favorite. And then Michael Jackson, Madonna's. Then I got into like all the rock stuff and some 80s metal and all this sort of stuff. So that sort of kind of got me wanting to sort of play again. I was in high school. And there was a friend of mine that just bought a guitar and was taking lessons. And, we were all listening to the same stuff, all guitar-based rock music, And then so we were, so he was doing that. He's like, man, you got to check out my new guitar, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, cool, let's do it. So we skipped school. Well, we had sport, but we skipped that. So we went to the music store so he could show me this guitar. And, it took it hours. I can remember it was red and it just looked amazing, man. I was just like blown away. I wasn't even playing, but I just thought, wow, this thing just looks so cool, And then he started playing. He was taking lessons and he was playing an AC/DC song, Long Way to the Top. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great, man. That sounds great. And for some reason, I don't know why, I said, oh, can you show it to me? And he's like, yeah, sure. He showed it to me and I don't know what happened, man, but it just felt like all the planets aligned at once and the clouds parted and, I ended up kind of just playing it, and that feeling that I got was just like, I'm like, what the hell just happened, So, I come home and the next thing it's like, hey guys, I want a guitar, so mum was like, okay, who's got one now at school that you want to be like? I said, no, I promise, there's my friend, but I really want to play. I know I had one before and, but I really want to get into this thing. And so anyway, so I ended up finding a friend that had an acoustic, and I was like, dude, you got to sell me your acoustic if you're not playing it. But I think it was like $50 or something, some Yamaha nylon string. I wish I still had it. It would have been such a great thing to keep, And so, so I got that. And then, I said to my parents, look, I really want to take this seriously. I want to take lessons, And so I started doing that, and, then that just became that was it. I got the bug and it hasn't stopped,
Who were your early guitar teachers?
My first guitar teacher was a guy who I still keep in touch with. We're still mates, and his name is Tony Svetkovsky. And I was learning in Hurstville. There was the Guitar Factory, which was a music store at the time, and it was the closest one in my neighborhood because I sort of ended up in my sort of teenage years, early teens, sort of growing up in that area, going to high school in the area. So that was a logical thing. So I went there, and he was really cool. He was just a few years older than me, had long hair, and it's just like cool dude. But he was fantastic. He was a big influence. And I kind of started off the right way, which I liked. Well, there's no right way, but for me it was the right way in the sense of like, starting with learning actually to read music and scales and theory and all this sort of stuff that I really, really am into, have been into because of that. I just love that language of music and all the stuff that goes with it, So he was one, and then there was another guitar teacher who was teaching there as well, a couple of teachers there. And then I got into university and went and studied music there for a few years. And then, I'm still studying and I'm a student for life, man. So, it's a lot of it is just like listening to stuff, learning stuff, and playing with people, and all sorts of getting stuff from all sorts of instruments and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, the influences and the teacher, like I said, is Tony, and it started from there. And yeah, man, I'm so happy it's still going.
That's cool. What was the uni you went to?
Yeah, I went to Wollongong Uni.
Oh, Wollongong Uni. Okay, cool, excellent. So what's the basis of that course down there? Is it like a contemporary music course, or was it a jazz type?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, man. That's what I was trying to do. I did the auditions. You got to audition for all this stuff. Well, I don't know what it's like now, but back when I finished high school, I had to audition for like the conservatorium and any other institute that was offering a music program. You had to audition and playing, written exams, oral exams, all that sort of stuff. The sad thing for me, I was really hoping to go to the conservatorium, which was like, as I had I really wanted to do that. I passed all the tests, but unfortunately at the time, my school, the high school that I went to, its overall ranking, I think the score was too low for them to accept me.
What?
And I was pretty bummed because, they were like, yeah, because from memory, there was a tertiary entrance rank after you did your HSC, which also, it was separate to your HSC then. And then what that meant was that your overall school had a mark, and then that affected your chances of going to certain tertiary institutions.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it bummed me out. So I know, it was the only reason I didn't get in. But, like I said, I auditioned not just there, I auditioned for Wollongong and maybe one other place, I can't remember. But it was only about 2 or 3 auditions, I think 3. And then, like I said, I didn't get that because of that, and they wrote me a letter, and I was pretty bummed. But anyway, I got into the others, and I chose Wollongong, and I was wanting to go in to do jazz studies and all that sort of stuff. And they had a private program at the Wollongong Uni there. They had a private program, but the thing that happened was once I got in, they stopped funding that program, so that wasn't available to me, and I was like, But anyway, so I know. I was like, oh, well. But I got in, and so I thought, look, I'm going to make the most of it. And then I selected, I can't remember. I changed my major. But my first major was music performance and, oh, God, it's a whole bunch of stuff, which was really cool. And then the curriculum changed the second year, and I wasn't really happy how it was going and this and that. So I kind of did the second year. And then the third year, by the third year, I was really working a lot in the scene. So I was just kind of like, what I was going to get as a degree, it just didn't align to where my path was and what I really felt like where my future would lie. But I did get so much out of being in school and just being immersed with kids every day, like me, just all about music, and just that's all it is 24/7, So it was great. It was really cool.
Mm. Oh man, that's
Man, I'm giving you some long-winded.
I love it. I love it, bud. I love it. That's really interesting. That about the whole school score. Like I've never heard. I have not been deep into education. I was I finished high school, and this was in New Zealand in Form 6, which is about year 11, I think it might be over there. That's when my schooling sort of ended. So I'm not sort of aware of tertiary or that kind of stuff. But that's news to me about how a school's overall score, especially if you're a high achiever and you're at that school. Like obviously you like you said, you got through the exams and you did everything that was required in the audition. But because your school had a ranking, you couldn't get in. Man,
it was totally paperwork, and that's why they were bummed. I was bummed. It had nothing to do with my ability, and it just basically was, this is how it works. And I think it was the first year that this tertiary entrance rank things actually started. And I asked a friend of mine, my best friend, one of his kids just did his HSC, and I asked him about this stuff, and I said, man, do you guys still have this TER? He goes, nah, it's called something else, but it's now combined with your thing, and it's like, it's an overall score now. I can't remember how he explained it, but it does it's kind of in effect. But I think when it started and when it was implemented was when I was doing my final year of year 12 in the HC. I think it was just implemented, so it was just like everyone was just by the, oh, no, this is the law, this is what we got to do, and I just think I fell through the cracks like that. But I'm not sure how crucial it is now. I mean, you might have people that listen to this podcast that might know, but I, like I said, at the time, that was definitely a thing that affected that, me getting into there. But like I said, it was all good, but, you know, I worked out in other ways. But, I'm not sure if that still happens, you know.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so you started to get out there and play around the scene while you were, you know, studying. Obviously, you're meeting all these like-minded people, like you said. Yeah, what's some of those first sort of you remember your first gig? You remember your first paying gig?
My first paying gig. Holy shit. Yes and no, kind of. Man, I couldn't remember the first one, but I can definitely remember the year I started. I mean, I was kind of in sort of original bands when I was in high school. You know what I mean? So we got paid, but it wasn't, you know, it was kind of an original thing. I didn't feel like I slipped into like working musician kind of, you know, session guy, all that touring guy until just after that band stopped. So I would say, and my first guitar teacher, Tony, was definitely a guy there that helped me out because he was in a band and he was doing something else and they needed a guitar player and I got thrown into that. But there was a few bands before that. So I'd say, man, you know, a couple of years after I left high school, maybe a year after I left high school, I started sort of, you know, I mean, I was, like I said, I was already doing that with an originals band, but I'd say, yeah, sort of a year into being out of high school, I started sort of working it out, getting paid and, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just looking at the stuff behind you in your studio there, and there's a picture of Hendrix on the wall.
Of course there is.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about Hendrix now. So when did you first become aware of Hendrix, and how deep did that deep dive go? And yeah, tell me a little bit about your Hendrix experience.
Man, so I would have heard Hendrix through my dad. You know, like I said, there was a lot of music being played. My dad was into rock, and Hendrix was definitely played. I even remember being a kid, and my dad was pretty wild, and his cousin who lived out over, he was wild. You know, they got matching tattoos, whole stuff. But anyway, I remember as a kid, before I was playing, I must have been 6, man, or 7. I can't even remember. But Pink Floyd released a movie called The Wall, right, which is to do with the album and all that sort of stuff. But they did a major movie, and I just remember going with my dad and my uncle, I'd say, or his cousin. And I'm sure they smoked some stuff before they went in, but I wouldn't have known. But anyway, we went and saw stuff like that. So, so between those two guys and that, the Hendrix thing would have happened around that time. And I remember being in primary school in Australia. I remember as a kid we had school fetes where they would put on a day, maybe on a Saturday, and then you'd be able to go into the school grounds and they'd be selling sweets and treats and books and a whole bunch of stuff, right? And I was, as a young kid, I had a turntable and speakers, and that's how we were listening to music at home and cassettes. So I had a little collection of records from, you know, being a Kiss fan. My parents would buy me Kiss records, and I'll never forget, I went to this school fete and, you know, parents gave me probably $2, which, you know, you could buy 40 items at that back in the day. So I'll never forget it. I was going through records and I saw a Jimi Hendrix Live in the West. I bought it. It was 20 cents. It was a live album, and I just lost my mind. I'm like, what the hell is – I mean, obviously I'd heard Hendrix, but then I had this record in my hands. I could look at him and I could just look at the names of the songs, and it was just a whole experience. So that happened. Then, you know, I got into it. If you can see on my left here, I've got Prince in the bottom there too. So, you know, those two guys are like, you know, my absolute heroes. But but the funny thing was, man, once I really got into guitar playing, I kind of didn't go through the Hendrix thing. I was kind of, believe it or not, I mean, I went through the Prince thing, Michael Jackson and all that, but I wasn't playing guitar at the time. But then when I started getting into the rock stuff, then listened and heard a guy called Yngwie Malmsteen. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Oh, yeah, man.
But yeah. So, but anyway, that absolutely blew my head, and that was the time when I started playing guitar. So then it was all about him. So unfortunately, there was a period of Hendrix where I just sort of stopped and was into all these guys and into the playing and getting, chops and really being able to be proficient at the instrument. I was really dedicated to just working on my technique, all that sort of stuff, man.
Yep.
But then once I started teaching, I remember a student that was so heavily into Hendrix, and he would be bringing me songs to learn. For me to teach him, and then it'd kind of be like, I wouldn't waste the lesson trying to learn it and show. Then I'd spend that week. And then following week, I'd teach the song and so forth. But in that week that I would sort of have to sit down and go, oh, yeah, I've got to learn that song for this student, for that, the connection was like, oh, my God, that's right. Where have I been? Then it just blew my head away. I dug deep into every record. I mean, I'm the biggest fan. I know a bunch of, it just changed my playing. It definitely changed my playing because it was like, oh, my God, this is it. This is why he's Hendrix. And so that's how I got back into it. Like I said, there was a little period where it wasn't forgotten. It just wasn't as appreciated in my young mind at the time. But then, like I said, through teaching and having to revisit that stuff and actually sit and learn the stuff, I was blown away, man. I was absolutely blown away. And like I said, and since then, it's like he's just, he's the one. He changed electric guitar playing forever in my eyes,
Yeah. So Very good. Okay, let's get back to the gigging and that sort of stuff. Okay, so yeah, you had the sort of high school bands, original bands and stuff like that. So when and who were the people that you were starting to surround yourself with to get yourself into the Sydney scene and start doing gigs around town? And because that's how I sort of first heard about you, and I've heard of a lot of people I've talked to on the podcast. Your name's come up a fair bit because you were here. So
do I owe them money?
No, just give it to me. I'll hand it on.
No worries, you got it.
Yeah, man. So let's talk a little bit about your time in Sydney now. So
yeah, so like I said, after high school and stuff like that, and that original stuff that I was doing, man, it was actually an established sort of metal band that I was playing with. I really want to recognize that because it was incredible to start with that, because I was still in high school, and these guys were older than me, and they've already been established. They've released music. They've been doing live gigs and some tours and stuff. So I was kind of in a cool little spot. So I'm in my high school uniform going to rehearsals, and then they're going out with girls and doing their whole stuff. So it felt like a very professional act, and we were rehearsing 3 nights a week, every week, regardless if there's gigs, no gigs, writing songs and, money, this and that. So that was, like I said, I just wanted to acknowledge that because it was such an amazing time for me, and I just felt like it really gave me a little bit of grounding as to being professional and what it takes. And the dedication, you know what I mean? The dedication of just being in a band, and that's what I really loved about it, because I just wanted that. That's how I was wired, and I think it was great. So anyway, I just wanted to just acknowledge that part. But yeah, so I started doing some gigs, like I said, through my teacher Tony, passed some stuff on. But what I remember the most is that I wanted to surround myself with people that were what I thought were better than me as far as playing goes, or have been doing it longer, or have, done some gigs or sessions or tours that I might have admired the artist or whatever it was. I was just hungry. I was really hungry. So I would, want to surround myself with that. And when I wasn't playing, I would go to gigs to watch these legends, who I was going to see, and who I thought were like amazing, and they were doing what I wanted to do, and at that certain level and all this sort of stuff. So Sydney was fantastic, man, for me, in that sense, where you could go out every night and watch 5 bands a night, and you're watching the best musicians in Sydney or in Australia, depending if they're coming through or whatever. And you're just blown away. I was blown away, every night, And so my focus was to do that, was to try and surround myself with people that are doing things, and you know, and I remember also just trying to get out there to, you know, do free sessions for people, demos, you know, just to obviously build up my chops in that scene as well. So, you know, I did that, but I also had a little recording set up, so I would practice with that. And so I just immersed myself in everything that I could, and I just really dedicated myself to, you know, being professional, learning the songs before the rehearsal and not at the rehearsal, you know, and so just being prepared and, you know, trying to give my best. And, you know, you learn along the way. There's bumps in the road and things you're like, oh, man, I shouldn't have, you know, maybe said that. Nothing bad, but just how you just, I don't know, business-wise, or just things you learn by growing up, man. And so, yeah, I found that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of be the guy that was doing a lot of gigs, sessions, tours, all that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to surround myself and, yeah, be in front of people that were doing that or get to meet them. And, you know, I remember going to gigs and then getting up to play or whatever it is, you know, just to sort of, be heard. You know, I just wanted to be heard, you know. And I don't have the best gift of the gab to sell myself and to tell you. I you know, even here in LA, man, I'm not good at that stuff. I wish I was better. I'd probably have more work. But I always knew that I just felt most comfortable if I could just play, you know, just get in, just jam and play and, you know, make that speak for itself, and then hopefully everything else falls into place, you know.
Just before we dive a little bit deeper into that, what you just mentioned something, you just said something then about sort of having to, you know, not having the sort of gift of the gab to be able to sell yourself. Like, so being in LA, how much of that is involved? Like, say, for example, you get a mediocre style guitar player, but he's a fucking good talker. He's got the best bio. He's got the best picture. And you put him up against someone who doesn't really talk that much, but's a mean player. How does that kind of work? I mean, you would have been to auditions and that sort of thing and seen all that sort of stuff firsthand. So what sort of element, or how much of the element is that in LA as compared to, say, here in Sydney?
Well, the thing in I'll try and answer this in a couple of answers, but I think unfortunately and fortunately in Australia we've had, and you would have heard about the tall poppy syndrome, and it's a thing. It's real, and the thing is, I found it a way of like, it's a challenge. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, you know, you got to sort of rise to the top to be seen, heard, all of that sort of stuff. But what I've realized from living in America is the downside of that is it just doesn't encourage sometimes individuality, or, you know, because you don't want to bring someone down that's trying something different. How do you get new artists? How do you get new art? How do you get stuff that's different? You know what I mean? I just find that's the double-edged sword. Like for me, I took it as a challenge to sort of push through that and go, I'm going to show you kind of thing. But also living here, I've noticed that, you know, people here encourage individuality and you trying something different. They don't try and put you in your place, and, you know. So the gift of the gab thing, I think, has been, I don't have one, is because I've learned in Australia not to talk about myself or talk up about what I'm doing, because you're a wanker, mate. It's like that whole tall poppy thing, you know, where you can't be better than me kind of thing, which, like I said, that's okay. I don't need to talk. I'll just do the work, which is fine.
That's it.
But over here, having that gift of the gab only gets you so far. It'll probably get you a foot in the door, but at the end of the day, man, and always, I don't care if you're in Australia, in America, or anywhere in the world, at the end of the day, it's the playing. And obviously, you've got to be a cool person, because, you know, doing any gig is like 2 hours of playing. Then the rest of the 22 hours, let's say if you're touring or whatever, it's hanging out and being cool. So there's a lot that goes with it. So, but the gift of the gab and talking yourself up thing, it's kind of, it doesn't get you the gig. It'll probably get you maybe a foot in the door because you're so comfortable and, you know, all of that sort of stuff, you know. But at the end of the day, it's a few other factors, I'd say, you know.
Very good. All right, so back to Sydney. I'm just trying to lead up to how you jumped on a plane and got over to the States. So, and then we'll talk about all that sort of stuff. So, all right. So, you know, you come out of high school, you're out there now. You're meeting like I said before, like-minded people, but you're going out and you're watching people play, and, you know, surely you're starting to get into these circles of all these musicians, you know, based on the people you know now, obviously. When did the US start to pop into your head that it was time to go over there and check it out and have a hang?
Well, I've been fortunate that I got to a point that I was very busy. I was doing a lot of sessions, playing with all the big artists in Australia, and, you know, doing gigs everywhere and stuff like that. And, I was so fortunate, so grateful, and I got to a great point, and I was like I said, so happy, so grateful. There was so much work. I was one of the guys, you know, there's a whole bunch of us, but I felt like at that point when I was here, I was one of the guys that was fortunate to have a little bit of that top sort of tier work.
Yep.
And then, I don't know, I just kind of felt myself being a little, I don't know, complacent or something. I was just like, why am I like feeling a little bit, I don't even know how to put it, but I'm like really excelled in my profession. I've got a great career. Things are going awesome. I'm like, there's nothing for me to complain about. Absolutely nothing. I'm, you know, doing, like I said, playing with all the artists, TV stuff, tours, sessions. I'm like, what else? Like, it's like there's, you know.
Yep.
So, maybe I was just working a lot and stuff like that. So I thought, man, I need a little break. I was just had so many tours back to back. We'll come home and this and that. And I just remember at one point I was like, man, I think I need a little vacation, holiday, just to sort of have a little break. And then I had a few buddies that were already kind of in LA, and I was like, man, I've never been to the States. You know, I should go to the States. I'm like, man, it's time. I've been to Europe, I've been to a whole bunch of stuff and toured elsewhere with some artists around the place. And I was like, man, I've never been to the States. And like, and, you know, some of the fellas that were here were like really close friends, you know. And so I was like, let me do that. I had like 3 weeks. I thought, let me do 3 weeks. I was thinking of maybe going to Japan to catch up with another friend, but I thought, let me do 3 weeks there and just hang, and, you know, and then I'll come back, and then I had a year full of work and all that sort of stuff. And so I got there, or I got here, I should say, to LA, and I don't know, man, I don't know, whatever was going on and the stuff I was just seeing and what my friends were involved in, I was like, man, this is so cool. It's a whole nother energy. You know, a whole other pace, you know, just America, LA, all like, it's like I said, it's my first time. So it's all just so fresh and new, man. And so I just, you know, had an opportunity for me to sort of stay, and I was like, do you want to stay and hang? I was like, why not? You know, so I wanted to change. And so I did. I sort of decided to do that, and, you know, pretty much gave up everything that I had happening in Australia, and, moved over here, man.
You mentioned the pace was different here, over there. Sorry. So what do you mean by that?
Oh, everything's a lot quicker. Like, people, when they want to do something, they're like, let's do it now. Let's get it done. And there's no, okay, so let's get together on Friday. We'll talk about it. And then next week we can. It's like, no, we're talking about it now. That's it. It's you know. So the pace of just everything being everything happening is, I feel, a lot quicker. And I think that's also just due to a lot more people, you know, in the place. And, you know, it's just a cultural thing too, I think, you know. But over here, I just felt like the pace was like, holy shit, you know, you got to be ready. You got to be in there. And you know, I feel that till this day too, man. Like, if I don't feel like I'm busy enough, I feel like, man, I feel like I'm out of the loop, or I'm not, you know, working or whatever it is. So it's same
with me, man. I think we might sort of think the same way. I've got to be busy doing something. I have to have something going on, otherwise, I just fall apart, man. Yeah. No, I hear. I hear, bro. So, yeah, man, that's the difference I find here, is that, you know, and I think, like I said, it's a lot more people. And the culture's different, you know. We're a little bit more laid back, which is fantastic and awesome. But that's the pace of Australia. So when you come here, you definitely notice the thing where it's like, man, people want to get stuff done now, you know. So, which is cool. I like that, you know. Okay, so went over there initially for 3 weeks, you know, decided that you were going to stay, right? you would have had to make some calls back to some artists or whatever you had lined up back home. How tough was that?
Oh, yes.
and it, was there? You don't have to name any names or anything, but was there any sort of pushback from any of those calls that you made, or everyone's like, "Oh man, this is fantastic. Good luck to you, Serg"?
Man, to be honest with you, everyone was a bit shocked because I wasn't talking about moving to the States or anything. That was never ever any conversation I've had with any friends or anybody or even a girlfriend at the time, whatever. I never had that talk. So for me, it was kind of like when I started making those calls, people were like shocked. They're like, "You're joking, right?" I'm like, not really. But yeah, I'm going to sort of give this thing it's like, "Are you serious? Are you sure?" Like, "Man, you're giving away or doing this and that." And I'm like, "Look, I know, but I just want to see where this goes," kind of thing, But so there was never any resistance or anyone being mad. I think some people just didn't understand. Like, I really didn't even understand, to be honest with you, bro. I'm like, what the hell? But at the same time, I'm like, like I told you, I felt a little complacent. So I thought this is maybe what I need just to shake things up a little bit, So, and I always thought that, what's the worst case scenario is to come back to beautiful Australia if that didn't sort of fit into whatever. So yeah, I was like, that's how it worked out for me, So yeah, people would just go, "What the hell? Are you sure? Are you serious?" But everyone kind of got it. But I think, a couple of years in, people are still sort of going, "Well, he's still there, or he's still going to be doing this thing," and
Okay, so how far into your stint there did you start working?
Well, the first couple of years.
For that, yeah, okay, so yeah, the first sort of few weeks is you're there for a vacation, and you saw all this, you were kind of starting to get hooked on the scene. When you sort of made that call that you weren't coming back, did you have work lined up there, or were you kind of, backing a bit of savings to sort of get you along, or did you have something lined up?
Well, no, I didn't have anything lined up. Like I said, I got over here, and then the guys that I was hanging with had an originals band, and they just couldn't work out a guitar player. They just were trying all these people, and I'd already worked with these guys so much back in Australia, and we had a really good thing when we played together. So it all made sense, man. I just wanted to change. So the first few years was spent on being an original band. So 2007, 2008, 2009. All of that time, I'd say the 3 years was spent on working on 2 different projects that were original bands that one of them got to a really good point, but it's a whole other story. But that was the focus. So I had some savings, but like not much. But then the Aussie dollar, this and that, I blew through that very quickly, and not from being stupid, just because there wasn't much, and also I had to live, and I wasn't throwing myself out there as like a session touring guy. I was there doing an original thing. I was in a band, so I kind of felt like I wanted to do that, because I think I maybe, like for the 10 years before that in Australia, I was already doing, all the touring sessions, gigs, TV stuff, radio, all that stuff. I'd been doing that for a long time, for about 10 years. And I just thought maybe that I just needed a break from that type of career or musical path or whatever you want to call it. So this was really fresh to me, and I always had bands and did things and write music and had studios and record. I still do it now. I mean, this is some of my guitars, but I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. But anyway, so that was what I did for those first few years, was just dedicated to that. And then once that sort of hit a wall, at the end of 2009 or around the middle of 2009, I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay here? Because that band original stuff was falling apart, all that sort of shit. And I was trying to get some work because I had to eat. So I was trying to get some gigs, and I was doing that sort of stuff. So I kind of was just like, okay, what am I going to do, man? Am I going to go back, or am I going to stay? But I've been here for 3 years now, and and I've started to sort of get some work, and I did a couple of sessions, and I'm like, okay, let me now focus and be into that, what I was doing back in Australia, touring guy, session guy, playing gigs around town and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of dedicated myself to going down that route, and then I found myself doing a lot of church gigs over here and getting into that gospel scene. And so I did that for many years, man, So, so that was that transition. So really, I started really pursuing kind of the capacity of like what I got into and what I've been doing probably about 3 years into being in America. So I'd say end of 2009, 2010 is when I started, really focusing on that and not having these original things that I was doing.
Mm. Okay, so let's talk about Earth, Wind and Fire. For people that don't know, and there wouldn't be too many, but Serg plays guitar in Earth, Wind and Fire, right? Yes, that Earth, Wind and Fire. Tell me how that gig came about, man. Where were you? How did it happen?
Well, as I just mentioned, I was immersed in this gospel scene, doing church gigs on Sundays and doing albums, live DVDs and stuff like that. And, so I was getting around and playing in that scene a lot. And then I got got a church that I finally could just have my own chair. That was like my gig. And so I started doing that. And, that was keeping me alive, man, at some points, just income and working. And, it was kind of like from that I'd meet a lot of musicians that were playing in the scene as well. So I realized that all the guys that do the church stuff, they also do a lot of the cool gigs in LA and touring acts and sessions and this and that. So through being immersed in that and then starting to slowly get work and stuff like that, I started getting around town and getting around the scene in LA and all this sort of stuff. And then I started working with a whole bunch of other artists and started doing some tours. But to answer you how I got the Earth, Wind and Fire thing was I finally had, like I said, a church where I was playing. That was my gig every Sunday and all that sort of stuff, and throughout the year, whatever else we had to do. And we have all sorts of people that come to the services. So I'll never forget, I finished playing the service and there's kids there and stuff like that. And this young little fella ran up to me. He must have been about 3 at the time. Ran up to me and he came up to me and he was like strumming the guitar. And, I'm like, oh, you want to play? And his dad came up saying, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, it's okay, cool. I'd love to encourage him, whatever. So that happened a couple of times. And then, long story short, that same guy whose kid came up to me, he ended up sort of coming in and playing a couple of services. And I heard him play, and I'm like, man, this guy he's not just a weekend warrior. This is another level, right? And so, we started talking. I'm like, who do you work for? And he's like, man, I play for, I'm the musical director for Earth, Wind and Fire. I'm like, no way. I said, bro, that's my favorite band in the world. Like, you have no idea, so. And I'm like, oh, great, you got to let me know when you guys are playing, blah, blah, blah. So long story short, he hired me for a session. I ended up doing a session or two for him. And, this went on for a couple of years. I was already touring, doing some other stuff with other bands. So sometimes I wasn't at church because I'd be on the road and I'd come in. And then 2014, it was March. I'll never forget. I came in, I was on the road. Came off the road and came into church. It was a Thursday night rehearsal. That was the thing. We had Thursday nights rehearsals. Sundays we had the 2 services. And he happened to be there. His name's Myron McKinley. And so he happened to be there. And I'm like, oh, good to see you, man. How you been? I just got off the road. How's, you've been busy? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And so he asked me, he said, what are you doing on Monday? This was a Thursday. I said, what are you doing Monday? I said, oh, man, not much. What's going on? He said, Earth, Wind and Fire are doing a record. Need you to come in for a day to help with some pre-production. Man, I don't know why. I think I had some stuff on, but I made sure that I was free. Ended up doing that pre-production day. And like I said, Earth, Wind and Fire is and still has been my favorite band of all time. How could you not love the music and the catalog? So I've studied this stuff since a kid, and Al McKay and Johnny Graham and all the guys that have been in their role. And I've worshipped these guys, man. Steve Lukather on some of the records. It's just like, it's amazing stuff. So I was kind of like, I kind of know the music. I've played it in a million cover bands, all that sort of stuff, So I kind of felt like, yeah, okay. So I did the first day and they were really cool. So they're like, hey, come in for the next day. I'm like, of course. And so that turned out in being come for the rest of the week. And then that turned into being well, seeing as though you did all this pre-production and it was feeling good, like, why don't you do the album? And, I was freaking. I was like, I expected just that one day. Like, that was all I expected. But now to do the album, I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing, man. And so anyway, long story short, did the record. We all did it. We did it live, and then, some overdubs and stuff like that, the usual crap. And then, I think it was the last day. We had 7 days. It's the last day, and we already finished, but, we wanted to go in just to see if there was anything else that we needed to do or fix up or whatever. And then Verdine White, the bass player, he pulls me. He said, hey, can I speak to you for a second? I'm like, yeah, sure. So he pulls me into a room. And anyway, long story short, basically asked me, would I like to roll with them? And of course I didn't even hesitate, and I said yes. In those words, like he's like, hey man, do you want to roll with us? He said, what have you got on this summer? Which was, in the next month or whatever. So he goes, what have you got in the next summer? And I actually already had tours throughout the summer, and he with Sugar Ray, who I was playing with at the time. And I said, he's like, what are you doing this summer, and do you want to roll with us? And I was like, yeah, man, of course, absolutely. And so he goes, cool. He goes, look, it's just, just come and roll with us, and we'll see how we go from there. I'm like, absolutely, man. So that's how I got my foot in the door, man.
And that's awesome. So are you still auditioning for them, or?
I think this is my. I'm coming up to 10 years now, so I'm hoping that I'm still not auditioning. So.
Yeah. No, that's great. So that album you played on, so that would have been, was that Holiday?
It's the whole Holiday record. Yes, it's the only Christmas record they've ever done in their careers. So
yeah, right.
Right. So I happen to be part of that. So yeah, that's the record that I'm on. Yeah, Holiday record. Yeah,
that's awesome. So has there been any recordings since then, or have you just stopped making albums now?
Well, I mean, there has been. Well, there's always been talk of getting in the studio and doing some new stuff, but there's been so much stuff that we've recorded for like movies and a whole bunch of stuff that we've gone in and redone, some of the classic songs, but we've done them now for whatever they need for, so like I said, for film. Like we did Trolls, the movie Trolls, which was Justin Timberlake and a whole bunch of stuff. So that just was phenomenal to do, record with them and do all that. So there's been stuff like that, recording on people's projects, like we've done where we go in as a band, and then we record like Kelly Clarkson and a whole bunch of other artists that use it's like featuring Earth, Wind and Fire, but we play on the whole track, and there's been a whole bunch of stuff like that. But since that record, man, no, I haven't been involved in any of the like new sort of EWF stuff, but I know there's stuff flying around, and hopefully there might be another record coming out, which I'd love to be involved in that, of course. So, but I do a lot of stuff with Verdine and John, the drummer from EWF. We do a lot of sessions, a lot of gigs together, a lot of projects. So, and I get a lot of support from them. They come to a lot of Intergalactix gigs, my group that I have and stuff. So I do, apart from just doing that, we have a thing that we do outside of that, and we work a lot, doing that. So always in the studio with those guys,
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, man. All right. Now, see, you sent me a bit of a discography of stuff that you've done. So I've just gone through and highlighted a few things, right? So
no worries.
So the Justin Timberlake thing, right? So that was that for the Trolls movie? And which Trolls movie was that?
The first one. The very first one.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so that was with him and the producer Timberland,
Yep.
So we ended up doing it here in Hollywood in a private studio, and they were both there, and we tracked that stuff live. And we even got Larry Dunn, the original, or one of the original keyboardists from Earth, Wind and Fire, came in and played on that, because we did a version of September that's in the movie where Justin sings on it as well, and the female lead in that as well. I can't remember her name, man, but she's a big actress, and she's the head, one of the lead voices. Yeah, I can picture her face. Her name.
She plays
me.
Poppy. She plays Poppy in the
Yes.
Trolls. Oh man, what's
Yeah. So they were there. So that was for that movie, and then they had to sing that stuff. But I got to spend a couple of days there because we went in the first day. We went in there, we laid our stuff down. That was done in like 5 minutes. And then I just got to hang. Got to hang with Justin and listen to me. Like he's my mate. I got to hang with Justin Timberlake and Timbaland, and we got to hang in there. And then I got to also just watch them work, which was so beautiful, man. And, and just have conversations with, just sitting with them on the lounge and just talk. Because I'm a fan of Justin Timberlake, so I love his records, man. And obviously Timbaland, I'm a big fan of his productions, going back from Missy Elliott and all the stuff, Aaliyah, you name it, man. So I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of the records, of his solo stuff. So I got to ask some questions. And then I got to, then he was telling me, he goes, check this out, man. This is how we we come up with tracks, and then there's Timbaland, beatboxing, creating. It was fantastic, and just the camaraderie they have with each other as well. And they were the most respectful, most coolest guys ever. You know what I mean? And so that was a really great thing for me, just to be around that too, and just to see how those guys work at that level. How they kind of create as well. And it's no different to anyone else, man. Everyone's got their method, but it was just awesome to be in the room with people like that,
You got Heart here as well.
Yes, I played with Heart, yes. My brother, Christian Attard, who was one of the guys that was here that I moved over kind of almost with and for. And then he and we've got our band to get as well, Intergalactix, which I'm sure we'll get into, but he's my bestie. We've been friends for over 20 plus years. And he's an amazing, amazing bass player, musician, all rounder, and, top guy. And so he scored the gig, with Heart, because the guys we had this original project together, and we had these 3 guys managing us who run this amazing studio. And one of the guys, who's an Aussie guy, Rick Markman, he was playing for Heart. He was the bass player for Heart, but he had to kind of pull out because his the studio that they run is a TV and film production studio. They work a lot and only on TV and film, so they were getting a lot of work. So he had to kind of bail out, and we were obviously on their radar because they were managing us and stuff like that. So he naturally got Christian an audition, and he got it. And so Christian was off doing Heart while we had our original bands, and then that finished, and he kept doing it. And then what happened was Heart and Def Leppard were on tour, doing a tour around the States, and Nancy Wilson broke her wrist. They had a little gap in the tour, and she broke her wrist, and they needed someone. And I don't think it was through Christian. It was through another guy called Mike Inez, who used to play in Heart, who I grew up watching him play for Ozzy Osbourne, but who now has been the bassist for Alice in Chains since the mid-'90s, and he's a member of Alice in Chains. So he was a friend, and so he recommended me for Heart. And so and then he obviously mentioned that I know Christian, and then we're besties, and then Christian obviously vouched for me. So they wanted me to fill in for her, but they wanted me to do a quick recording of me playing, I think it was Barracuda, and it was what's the one with it's acoustic guitar, Magic Man or something. I can't remember. Anyway, it's been a minute. So anyway, so I did that, got the gig, and then next minute I'm on the tour bus with Christian, and we're touring America, playing in the same band with Heart, who's a legendary band who I'm a fan of and I grew up listening to. And now I'm on stage with them. There's Ann Wilson singing, Nancy Wilson on stage, and my best friend Christian's on bass. We're rocking out, and I'm just going, this is the best. And then, we're on tour together, same tour bus. And I was only supposed to do maybe a couple of weeks, but I ended up doing the month. So I'm really good friends still with a lot of the crew guys and the production guys there. And I bump into them on other festivals because they work now with like Journey and a whole bunch of stuff. So it's really great. I still have that thing. I'm friends with everyone that I worked with on that tour. But that's how I got that gig, man. And then there was a few times over the years that I was called to sort of be on standby to jump up again and do it, but it never transpired again. But if it ever did, man, I'd do it in a heartbeat, So that's how that came about. And I ended up, like I said, I did play with them, and it was probably for about a month, I'd say. Yeah, I was on tour with them, So it was killer. I had the best time, man. It was the best, you know.
That's great, man. You got a big smile on your face when you're telling that story.
Yeah, it's just great. Like, I'm just thinking back, going, like, what are the chances that, you know, then you're there with your best mate as well, both Aussies, having the same experience, like, it's just killer, you know. I was just so happy and grateful and fortunate that could happen, you know.
That's cool. All right, the next one, Ariana Grande. My daughter is a big Ariana Grande fan, and before I ask you about that story and that gig, you know, I've when I see sort of celebrities on TV or in books and magazines and that kind of stuff, I always wonder how tall they are. That's the thing I've got, right? So I'll Google and I'll see how tall someone is. And anyway, yesterday, me and my family, we went into town and we went to the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, which is the first time I'd ever been there, right? And in there is a wax figure of Ariana Grande. And what they say when they make these wax figures is that, you know, because people ask, is it their actual size, right? And they said, well, apparently not. They make them 5% bigger because they melt and shrink, right?
Over time,
so anyway,
right.
I went and stood next to the Ariana Grande figure there, and she's got high heels, and man, she's tiny. She's really short, you know. So anyway, that's my story. So yeah, anyway, so you tell me about playing with her, and you played on the album, didn't you? Yep.
Well, that's the connection, yeah, Stevie. I never got to meet her. I just got to play. I got to play on her first record. So there's a track I'm on. Mate, I can't remember. You got something. I can't remember what it is, mate. But anyway, I played on that record. But how that came about was I was the in-house sort of session guy, guitarist for Babyface's studio. So So before I started with Earth, Wind & Fire, I ended up playing, doing all the sessions there for a couple of years. Through playing.
You would have seen some amazing talent come through there. Wow, man, what a gig. That's great.
Well, not always, man, because the thing is, it's like, you know, where I was working, it's called Brandon's Way. That's his studio. And it's basically a production house, a production studio. So when I was going in to do sessions, I was going in to just do sessions. So I never really worked with the artist. They'd kind of written the songs, and now they were producing them up, you know what I mean? And they were doing that for a lot of people. That's how I got the Aretha Franklin, Ariana Grande. It was through the same studio, but I never worked with the artist in front of me. I just happened to be on the actual session because, it was just, like I said, Brandon, the Babyface's studio. They were, like I said, writing. It's a great studio, amazing, like top of the line, studios, you know, but the thing was, it's not a commercial place. They just, like I said, they do the writing and production, and then, you know, for big artists and stuff like that, or they develop new artists. And I think it was her first album, so I think they did maybe half the record, man. I'm pretty sure they did a bit of it. So that's how I got the Ariana Grande. It was just through doing a session. I didn't actually play for her live.
Do you get the credit on the album?
Yeah, I think it's out there, like on Discogs or whatever the thing is. I did remember seeing it once because someone wanted some info, and I did have a look, and I'm like, oh, okay, they put that one up there. So there's a couple of, I think the Aretha one, that one, and a whole bunch of stuff. But that was definitely up there. So I don't know, because they don't do liner notes anymore, man. So I don't know where that credit pops up if you look for it. But it's a lot of them. You know,
I find a lot of those. I find Wikipedia is the place to go now to find the.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I think there's Discogs, there's All Music, you know, and then if I'm sort of like when I was, you know, doing some research for you today, you know, for the Earth, Wind & Fire stuff, you know, Wikipedia, it's got all the albums, got track listings, personnel, you know, it's that seems to be where a lot of that stuff is now. So
Okay, yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about Intergalactix now. So people that don't know what Intergalactix is, it's Serg and Christian's, what would we call it? It's funk, man. It's fucking great. I love it.
Yeah, it's evolved a little bit. It's indie, definitely.
was that something you guys started sort of way back, early days when you were first in LA, or is that something that's sort of a project that's come, fairly recently?
Well, we were, like I said, when I first moved over, 2007, Christian and I had these bands that we were doing, original bands, and that we were working with that. That kind of fell apart, and, I was kind of a little bit bummed and just, anyway, trying to work my way as to what I was going to do, all this sort of stuff. Christian was just started doing his heart stuff, so he was doing his thing. And everywhere we kind of lived close to each other, you know what I mean? We're always sort of close to each other. Even now, we're like 5-10 minutes away, always really next to each other. And then we were like, we were hanging out, of course, and just jamming and doing a little bit of production for some people, we were just sort of doing that sort of thing. And then we were like, man, like being in a band is so hard sometimes because you got 4 people or more and you got to do all that. So we were just like, man, we had this cool thing with the production stuff that we were doing. So we're like, why don't we do our own shit, man? And just like, we're still working together. Like we're creating music, but we're doing it for other people or this and that. So it was 10 years ago, I think, maybe 2013. So maybe, 11. But we just started doing tracks, and then we spent 2013 doing that, and we got an agent. We did that, and so I think did we have management? No, I didn't think we had management then. So anyway, we got an agent, we wrote all this stuff, we released it, and then we started touring, man. We actually started doing our own tours, festivals, and doing all that sort of stuff. So that's how that came about. It came about because we'd already been working together for 20 plus years. And then we're best friends, and we're already making music, and it was just like natural to just put it all together. And, so the name thing's always a hard one. So we had a whole bunch of names thrown around, but Intergalactix was the working title, and we just kind of went with that, man, So.
Do you find with that name, because I think people, when you hear the name Intergalactix straight away, unless you see how the name is spelt, people are going to type it in as, Galactic.
I know.
It's one of those names where you could, people go and look for you and they can't find you. I can't find you, mate. So
Nah, I know, man. So that's why we've been shortening it to IGX.
So right. That's very
so
good.
we sort of tag IGX. But the thing is, it's like, you'll see it. And the thing is, there's a lot of people like, oh, Beastie Boys, And it's like, well, no, that's a great song, but it's not anything to do with the Beastie Boys. We were kind of like, I'm a massive UFO guy, man. Like, I've been into this stuff since I was like 7. So I am beyond into the whole thing. So, and we're both into a little bit of space stuff like that. So it was kind of like just throwing out names. And like I said, the first images of when we started and the artwork that we were doing was all sort of like, 80s, like sort of modern, like this sort of stuff. And the girl that I'm wearing, the artist, Letitia Nagel or whatever, the classic 80s artist. But we were kind of thinking that stuff, but with the UFOs and all that. So the name was kind of, we were keeping it like that. But then in the first few releases that we did, our first few EPs and all this sort of stuff that we have, Christian singing on them. They're songs. They're all, they're like electro funk, indie, but electro funk sort of stuff. And then in the last few years, when the pandemic hit, we went and recorded a couple of albums live to tape in Austin, Texas. Sorry, not in Austin, but in Texas. And it's instrumental. So the last couple of records and this new record that's coming out is basically instrumental music, So it's a little bit of a change. So, yes, I don't know what to call it anymore, man. I'm like electro funk instrumental. I don't know. I don't even know what to call it. So
I was looking at some videos and stuff online yesterday, just doing a bit of research and stuff. And you mentioned that early Intergalactic stuff, Christian singing on it.
Yeah.
One song I came across, the music video was actually a whole bunch of the cats here in Sydney, right, playing along and singing along, and it's like a whole bunch of friends sort of,
yep.
Have done a recording, and it's all been put together into this video. I think it's fucking great.
Yeah, the song's called "The Now." Is that the one you're talking about?
I think so. Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, so that was our idea, was to just try and involve people, and also, if you look at the video, we had one massive party at Christian's place. We moved all the furniture. We had, like, I don't know, man, we had too many people in there, but we made it just fun. And then we got people to just, send us some stuff, like just send us videos of themselves miming to or playing to or whatever it was. And then we compiled it. So, man, it was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun to do, man. It's a cool track too. That was also produced by Maxwell and Dutch Duke. Yeah, so we wrote that and obviously played on it and stuff, but they produced that track. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's fantastic. So the new so the 2022 album, Evolution of, right? So was that so that was one of the albums that you recorded live to tape in Texas, is that right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, it's kick-ass, man. I've been listening to the album the last couple of days. It's really cool, man. It's just that.
Thank you.
And what you guys were doing too is you were it was like these little short videos you were doing on Instagram.
Yes, Living a Tuesday.
Living a Tuesday, that's right. So just you two guys. Sometimes you're in the same room, sometimes you're not, but you're just playing. It's just a riff, or I don't know if they were parts of songs that are going on albums, or they're just sort of jams you came up with. But I tell you what, that shit got me through COVID, man. I would wake up.
Oh, wow.
Get on Instagram and see that, and just shit like that makes you smile, man. It makes, it was fantastic.
Oh, that's so great to hear, Stevie, man. So basically, when we started in 2019, and we called it Living a Tuesday because we were dropping them every Tuesday, and we said no covers. We're not doing covers of any songs. Each week is going to be a fresh new idea. I mean, not all of them are the best, but what we did that consistently for a couple of years, and then. Or actually maybe a year and a half, because then COVID hit, but we had enough options of these ideas that we put down, which were all new and fresh and our creations. And so we then took the best ones that we like and then added and wrote to those and made them, what you hear now on that first record and this next record that we're dropping. But yeah, definitely started from that, man, Living a Tuesday. And that's how we ended up doing a festival in the Philippines just before the pandemic hit. And we're actually going there again now in March, middle of March, to do the same festival. Basically, it was the guy that runs it, Miro, runs the festival. He's been running for over 10 years. He loved our stuff from those videos. So it was just uncanny how we got this gig and how the attention for that. And we've started doing it again. And the last video we dropped, not the last one, I think the one before, man, we're over 60,000 views or something like that, and it's just organic. And I'm like, how the hell do we even do that? So there's something about those things. I don't know, man. But like I said, our whole thing is we're not doing covers or other people's music. We're just going to do these little jams, and then just put them out there.
Yeah, I just think they're just produced so well. They sound so good, but you're also hooked into the fact that. You're both just grooving, man. You're having a fucking great time while you're sitting in a room and playing this music together. It's fucking great. I love it.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's infectious, and it's making me smile just sort of talking about it and thinking about it. So,
oh, that's awesome. That's good to know, man. But when you see us that we're the camera split, it means that we're both on tour or one of us is on tour and we just can't be in the same room. So we just still make it work, though.
Oh, it works, man.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun, and we're having a ball with it,
That's cool. So tell me about. Well, actually, before I ask you about the new album, one thing. I'm not a guitarist, right? I'm a drummer, bass player, podcaster.
Nice.
The Gibson Les Paul is not really synonymous to funk music, right? But that's that's kind of your signature, I think. Right. I mean, you just play, well, from what I've seen, you just play all that stuff on a Les Paul, right? So can you tell me how that came about? And was it by design that you grabbed the Les Paul, to play funk music with, or is it actually the way that that's your sound. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it does make sense. The funny thing is, man, the funny thing was I have never been a Les Paul player. Like I played the Les Paul on that Holiday record,
right?
For EWF that I mentioned. That was the first time I kind of played the Les Paul that much on a record and whatever. And then when I got the gig, that was the guitar that just made the most sense because the other guitar player, Maurice O'Connor, he plays more of a Strat style guitar, and Al McKay always played like a 335, right? And so I was like, well, okay, I'm going to play the Les Paul. But I had to be, so this sounds so weird, I was a Strat guy. I've been a Strat guy and, all
I can see stuff. There's a Strat right behind you.
Oh, there's absolutely, yeah, there's a couple
off
of
your left shoulder.
Yeah. But so what happened is that I kind of had to adapt on the Les Paul to play this gig. And ever since then, it's funny that you asked that question. I get asked that a lot. And I was never the Les Paul guy, but it's so funny. I'm getting a lot more talk about that because of the Les Paul. And the thing is, there has been other guys doing it, man. I mean, we can talk about, Tower of Power. We can talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but, it has been around. But the thing is, it's not common. Exactly. It's definitely not common. But I just find that maybe it's the Les Paul that I've got. I didn't change the pickups on it. I just bought it. It's a 2012 model. I just love it. And it just has this thing. And so it definitely is a different sound to a Strat. But the thing is, you can still make it pop and make it do all these things that are just kind of a little bit different to the Strat. But, man, I think it just cuts through differently, So, yeah, for me, it's just the guitar I play now all the time. I don't know. I've really gotten to got to know it. And even when I'm on the road and I do sessions remotely, I do a fair few sessions remotely. So, I love doing it. So if anyone wants to hit me up, I'm always down for doing sessions. But the thing is, with the Les Paul that I've got, the tone knobs and the volume knobs, you can pull them up. And what they do is they split the pickups and give you a few different sounds. I only use that when I'm recording and I've got the one guitar and I want to try and get a couple of different sounds for whatever the session is that I'm doing. But live, it's stock. All the things are down. Everything's up. Middle position is my rhythm sound. And that's it. That's the sound,
Easy.
So, yeah, it's really funny that I get asked that a lot, but I never started out being a Les Paul guy. Like, actually, that's the first Les Paul that I've ever owned. Can you believe that?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not vintage, right? You just said 2012. So
2012. I'm not gonna. I've got another beautiful Black Beauty, which I got gifted to me by someone very special to me, and it was the most amazing gift I've ever received. But that Les Paul, the gold top, is 2012, a standard. It's got nothing that's like, and man, if I showed it to you, it's beaten up now. It's got it's really, really well worn in. I love it. It's going green, which Les Pauls do after a while. They start turning this certain green color. But yeah, man, I've gotten to really, really love it,
Right. So how many guitars do you own currently?
Oh, I'd say there's about 20 or so somewhere, Okay. I have a few guitars also on the trucks with my other gear and stuff. So,
of course,
a couple of acoustics and some electrics and stuff. But yeah, pretty much, I'd say around that. From sitars and basses and ukuleles and a whole bunch of stuff. There's quite a few things there.
So most of that stuff, it's stuff you're going to use, right? So you're not really just collecting it because it's a certain guitar and you don't play it. You're not one of those guys, or
I play all my guitars. These are tools. They're tools for me, man. I can't justify spending 10 grand on the guitar and just letting it sit there. I actually play them. You know what I mean? So for me, everything that I have is because of the sound, or it's another sound that I can use and have, because I still do sessions and. I need to be prepared for whatever the client might want, or artist, or whoever I'm working for. So, yeah, I like I said, the guitars and stuff, and I collect even keyboards. I collect that and recording gear and all that sort of nonsense. But yeah, it's everything that I have is I definitely play.
Yeah, that's cool. So amplification. So do you use stuff like like amp modeling, Kemper, that what do they call them, Axe effects? Do you use that kind of stuff, or you just an amp? You're just an amp guy?
Live, I'm an amp guy, man. I do amps. I'm endorsed by a beautiful company. I love the amps. They've been my favorite. It's a company called Bad Cat. They're very, very well known. I've been using them for the last couple of years, and so live, I use all that. But when I'm at home, or especially on the road, and I've got to do a session, I don't have the luxury of miking stuff up like I can at home or whatever. So I use a Line 6 Helix thing, which is basically a modeler, and it's one of the ones that's up there with the Kempers or the Axe effects and stuff. Slightly different, but I'm always looking at what's good with all that stuff. So that's what I use only for, like I said, for sessions that I'm like I said, for one, on the road, or two, I don't need to mic my setup up. There's more options there, depending on what the job is, but that's pretty much it. But yeah, live, man, all amp and
cool.
And valves and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, the good stuff.
Good stuff. All right, let's talk about the new album. When it's coming out, tell me when it's coming out, the new Intergalactix album.
The new Intergalactix will be out this year. We're in the process of finalising some mixes. Got about maybe 4 or 5 songs to mix. Then we need some mastering, got some artwork on the way. And so, it takes a sec, but I'm hoping by summer, or American summer, which will be like end of June, kind of thing. So I'm hoping that we can get it out before then, but that's kind of like a deadline I'd like to keep, And I was going to say, yes, it's going to be like the one that we released, because the way we did these 2 albums, we basically went into the studio in Texas for about 3 days, I think it was. We bought a tape, 2-inch tape. We went into the studio. We had 20 songs or 18 songs or whatever it was, and whatever, whole bunch of stuff. Excuse me. And then we just we recorded all of that stuff live, and now we split it into 2 records instead of one massive one with 18. We kind of split it into 2. So so those are the same sessions as the one we just released, but they're obviously different songs. But so the feel and the sound will be very much cohesive, because it was done at the same studio. It was the same sessions on the same tape that we keep wiping over with the next song and next song. So so that's what you can expect the next record to be.
That's great. Have you got some touring coming up with Earth, Wind & Fire?
Yeah, man, I've got a fair bunch coming up. I've got we do also corporate gigs, So there's a handful of those that obviously aren't public, and so you won't see them on any of the sites. But yes, there's a Lionel Richie tour again that we're doing come May. End of April into May, we're doing that again. We just did that last year for a couple of months around the country and into Canada. That was mind blowing, especially his catalogue as well. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. So we've got that happening, and then straight after that, we've got a few of our own things, and then we hit the road with the group Chicago for a couple of months.
Oh, cool.
Going through America and Canada. We've done, since I've been in the band. Well, both bands had a thing. Back in 2009 or something, they did a tour together, and I think they released a DVD. And then since I joined the band, we've done about 2 or 3 tours together. And then, we haven't done that since probably 2016, maybe. 16? Yeah, probably around then. And then, and so now, I think by popular demand or whatever it is, we're doing that again. So we'll be co-headlining with them, like I said, around the country and Canada for a couple of months, And then the finale of those shows is both bands on stage together playing, which is 22 people, man. It's insane. Yeah, it's insane. So there's that.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, just on that then, 22 guys on stage, right? So as a guitar player, one of how many guitar players will be on stage?
Well, it'll be myself and Morris, the other guitar player in Earth, Wind and Fire, and I think just one guitar player for.
Oh, only three. Okay, all right. That's not too bad.
It's not too bad. We've worked it out before. Yeah,
you've worked it out. Yeah, okay. All right. So outside the Earth, Wind and Fire stuff, outside of Intergalactix, what else have you got going on?
I'm in the process of just writing, recording. I haven't done an EP of my own stuff, just guitar playing sort of stuff, So I've been really trying to work on that to get that out because it's everyone sort of asked, and I'm like, I haven't done. I've always played on other people's, or even with Intergalactix, it's very specific as to what we do with that. But I listen to so much music, man. I'm into everything, so I just want to, I need to get a little EP out of my just guitar playing stuff, self-indulgent guitar playing, no
just shredding,
rules, just whatever I feel kind of thing.
Yep.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
Some of your Malmsteen stuff.
Style.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. I got to get back to my Steve Vai and Yngwie Malmsteen roots, But yeah, so that's what I've been working on. I've just been sort of coming up with those tracks so I can have them ready to release. I've just been working on that stuff slowly. So I've got that. A lot of stuff with Intergalactix. We've got a lot of shit that we're going to be doing. I do a lot of art and stuff like that. I want to start getting some of my art that I do and stuff on my website. My website's just been sort of getting that together. So once that's done, it's the same handle as my my Instagram name, which is Serg D Music. And so, so I'll post that. But yeah, so like I said, my website, I'm working on that. That's almost done. And once I get that up, I'll be able to sort of post more stuff and just more content. And like I said, I want to have a little store there where I can sell some stuff that I've been just doing in my spare time, artwork and anything like that. So yeah, man, just a few things, just trying to stay busy, and practicing. Yeah, just always practicing and trying to stay on top of that, So
yeah, right. So how often do you practice? And when you're practicing, are you practicing for maintenance, or are you working on, you're working on concepts?
Oh, I think it's all of the above. I try and play every day. Every day. So the thing is, sometimes it's like I was just in Australia, as you know, when I met you, and when I do that, like the end of the year or the beginning of the year, I will take some time off from playing because it's like I need to live life and experience it. So when I get back on it, I've missed, So I mean, I still, even when I was in Australia, I still had my guitar that I'd play at night, but it's not like every other day. But there were some days I didn't. So for me, what I like to do is that I'd like to stay, in good maintenance, So I will always try and just, do that. But then there's things that I do work on for sure, man. Always trying to get better or just trying to open up concepts, ideas. I watch a lot of stuff online, man, and YouTube, and just sit there and, I'll watch guys playing, oh, that's a good idea, or what the hell are they doing? I'll try and learn that stuff or whatever it is. But it's really different every day, because like now, once I get off the phone with you, I've got a couple of rehearsals tomorrow and Thursday, and then I've got a lot of songs to learn. So I'm just going to be like last night till 1 a.m, and now after I get off the phone, there's just going to be learning songs. So I'm still playing, but it's a different type of thing. I'm actually playing and learning these things. So that's what I'd like to be consistent. So otherwise it's like when you don't play for a while, it's like, oh man. I feel like you need to spend a day just doing like exercises and just warming up techniques and all that sort of stuff, What about you, man? Are you playing? Are you still doing stuff?
I haven't actually actively played drums in a couple of years now, but I did have a bit of a hit out on Boxing Day. Got to have a jam with some friends, which was great fun.
Good.
But yeah, the thing, I don't have space in my house to be able to set drums up. Like this little room I've got here, this is sort of my space, and I've got the racks here. I've got all my drums on it. I've got a keyboard back there, and I got I still play my bass. I've got my bass. I bought a little Mark bass sort of practice rig that I've got just here, nice. And I still jam along to that stuff. But I'm not out there playing, man. Not it'll come back, but at the moment, nah. I'm just happy to talk about music, man. Yeah, love it.
Oh man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this, and you're doing a great job, and you great questions, and it's just nice to be able to share some stuff and get people to hear it, and just to see what this crazy thing called music looks like when you're doing it for a living, kind of thing,
Yeah, that's great, man. Thanks for the kind words, and yep, again, thanks for hanging out. And next time you're back in Sydney, let us know when you're coming back, and yeah, we'll go and watch another band together. And
absolutely, we'll grab a couple of beers, mate, for sure.
For sure, bro. All right, Serg, look after yourself, brother, and I'll talk to you soon.
No worries. Thank you so much, Stevie. I really appreciate it, mate. See ya.
Too good, bud. See ya. Yo, it's Stevie here. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you dig the Gig Life podcast, please subscribe, share, leave a review. Please follow us on Instagram and TikTok. You can send me a message if you have an idea for a guest, or if you just want to say hello. This podcast is free, costs you nothing, but if you find the value in the Gig Life podcast, you can leave a tip or a donation. Links are in the show notes on your app. That's it for me for now. Catch you next time, guys. Cheers.